Hi everyone, I'll make this a quick video. Basically this is about fitting a Walkera 2D plastic gimbal on a CX20, which I've done. I've been looking for lots of info for this, and I wanted to use the one of the trims for adjusting the camera angle, and having a little bit of trouble getting that to work reasonable. It's a little bit better, but it seems to be very sensitive. And there's also a little thing which I've discovered which I'll show you. But anyway, the other thing is the CX20 needed to be a little bit higher, and I've looked for various videos of how to extend the legs, and I think I've probably come up with a fairly neat solution, and that was what I wanted really. You see guys using some foam, strips of foam sort of cable tied to the legs, and whilst I think that that probably provides a little bit of wind resistance, as in the wind will catch it if it is windy. So if you're on the borderline of the wind being a little bit too much for your drone, if you've got some great big pieces of foam on, chances are it will take it away. Obviously also I wanted to keep down on the weight. So what I've done, I've got some white 20mm conduit plastic, and then I've fashioned these little stubby legs. Okay, and I'm going to show you those there. And what I've done, cut the shape here, and that was done with like a hole cutter, the tapered ones, and then obviously cut the bottom at an angle. And then also what I did, I used the CX20 rubber feet, which are quite rubbery, if my camera will focus on them, and stuff them in the end, and all held together with a bit of hot glue. And I think that well, I hope you agree, it makes quite a neat job, and when it's on the ground gives sufficient clearance for the gimbal. With the CX20 feet just as they were, if you landed on sort of uneven ground or grass, you were putting pressure on underneath the gimbal, which is not good. So basically that's 20mm white plastic conduit. Took the rubber feet off of here, fashioned the plastic, which is quite easy to sort of model if you like. Cut down the tube with a tapered hole cutter, which makes one half of one foot and the other half of the other foot. Cut them off in the middle where the thin bits remain, and then I cut the feet at an angle so that they slightly splayed out, just to increase that footprint sort of thing, and then give the clearance for the gimbal. As for wiring the gimbal, it comes with a little 3-core pin, and if you plug it into one of these and into here, the gimbal will actually work. I tried measuring the voltage with a voltmeter, and there didn't seem to be 12 volts on there, and I think sometimes I noticed a couple of times when I was flying, the gimbal would sort of stay in one position before it rectified itself, so I think the voltage was too low. So basically you'll see on your CX20 you've got ground and 12 volts here, which is where the power's plugged into, so that plugs into there. I've got a plug and socket there, so I can leave each half of the cable in when I take this off. And this is one of the 3-core cables with the plug on each end that comes with the gimbal, and you just need to slice the tang off the plug here to get that in. Make sure you get it in the right way around. I don't know if you can see, but basically leave the white wire on, and it wants to be plugged in on the G+5 volts S1 or S2 position. Now the S1 or S2 position on your transmitter is that and that. And what I find with the control of the gimbal is that when this is fully up at 0, that gives the camera straight ahead. If you move it to the first segment to the right, that points straight down. So you can see how fine the control is. And then if you move it back there, what in theory should happen is the camera should go back to the middle. But what I'm finding with this setup is 0 is like the stopped position. So if you move it that way, the camera will tilt down. Bring it back to the 0, the camera will stay where it is. Move it this way, the camera will tilt back towards the upward position or horizontal position. Move it back to 0, it will stay where it is. Obviously without FPV, that's a little bit difficult to do when the camera is in flight. But I guess, you know, for each shot, you could bring the drone back near you, put it in position hold, and just adjust that so you can see where your camera is. And because it's wide angle, you'll sort of get it somewhere near. So that's about it really. Only other thing to say is underneath the CX20 there are 4 holes in like a cross position. Okay, 2 of those holes will line up with the mounting peg for the gimbal, and you need a 3.5mm tap to tap out those holes because they are too small for the screws that come with the gimbal. So what I did, there's like brass inserts on the inside of the drone. If you pop them out, they're really hard to get back in. So tap those out to I believe it's 3.5mm, and then the screws that come with the gimbal will go straight in. If I unplug my gimbal and slide it off, which is a bit tricky with one hand, but there we go. Okay, so there you go. There are 4 holes there in the CX20. They are slightly too small with the screws that come with the gimbal. If you tap those out with a 3.5mm tap, the tang for the gimbal locating peg will screw straight in. And I think that all in all, that makes a pretty good job, I believe. Sort of finished as far as my mods will be going at the moment. So thank you for watching this. If you've got any questions, leave some comments below.